Just moments ago, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation dropped a bombshell report that has every homeowner, investor, and industry expert talking. They're predicting a modest recession in 2025 that could trigger the very housing collapse we've all been dreading. But here's what they don't want you to know. There are 7 critical warning signs flashing red right now, and I'm going to break down each one. Number 6 will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Ontario's housing stability. But number 1 is the most important because it affects every single homeowner's mortgage renewal coming up in the next 18 months. Let me start with something that will blow your mind. The latest documents I found reveal something shocking about what's really happening behind closed doors at the Bank of Canada. Senior Deputy Governor Carolyn Rogers just warned against changing mortgage rules to address housing affordability, but here's the real reason behind this decision. They know the system is already on life support. While politicians talk about making housing more affordable, the central bank is desperately trying to prevent a complete financial meltdown. What happens next will surprise you. The Bank of Canada has already cut rates 5 times this year, bringing them down to 3.25%. That sounds like good news, right? But wait until you see how this is actually making the crisis worse, not better. Here's what the experts are really saying when they think no one's listening. Oxford Economics is warning that Canada's economy will remain on the edge of recession through 2026, with housing activity struggling to find a bottom. But that's not the worst part. They're predicting broad-based weakness across the entire economy with little sign of easing. The mortgage renewal tsunami is already building momentum. Nearly 60% of Canadian homeowners are facing mortgage renewals between now and the end of 2026. The Bank of Canada's own research shows that homeowners renewing in 2025 and 2026 will face payment increases ranging from 15 to 20%. An unlucky 10% of buyers could be facing payment increases of up to 40%. Imagine your monthly mortgage payment suddenly jumping by hundreds or even thousands of dollars overnight. This number will blow your mind. The average 5-year fixed uninsured mortgage rate was 67% higher in July 2025 than it was at the same time the previous year. That means if you locked in a rate 2 years ago at around 2.5%, you're now looking at rates above 4% when you renew. For a typical Ontario homeowner with a $500,000 mortgage, that translates to an extra $800 to $1,200 per month in payments. But here's where it gets really scary. CMHC is now forecasting that home prices will fall 2% nationally in 2025, with larger drops expected in Ontario and British Columbia. The Canadian Real Estate Association is even more pessimistic, forecasting a 4.2% drop in Ontario home prices for 2025. When you combine falling home values with rising mortgage payments, you get the perfect storm for a housing market collapse. The construction industry is already sending distress signals. New home construction dropped 17% in October alone, according to CMHC. Developers are delaying projects due to high costs and uncertain demand. This means the housing supply crisis that everyone talks about is actually getting worse, not better. When supply contracts and demand remains pressured by affordability issues, the market becomes increasingly unstable. Wait until you see what's happening in the condo market specifically. CMHC is warning of rising condo market risks as sales collapse and investor losses mount. Condominium apartment sales in Toronto have fallen 75% since 2022, while Vancouver saw a 37% drop. The sharp decline in sales has left many developers struggling with unsold inventory and mounting carrying costs. The real reason behind these alarming trends goes deeper than most people realize. Trade tensions and slower population growth are contributing to economic headwinds that are dampening business and consumer confidence. Immigration targets have been reduced, which means fewer new buyers entering the market just when existing homeowners are being squeezed by higher borrowing costs. Here's what they don't want you to know about the government's response. While Ottawa announced new mortgage rules allowing 30-year amortizations for first-time buyers and increasing the insured mortgage cap to $1.5 million, Bank of Canada officials are privately concerned these measures could actually make the market more unstable by encouraging more borrowing at already stretched levels. The employment picture is adding another layer of concern. As the economy slows and recession risks increase, job security becomes questionable for many homeowners just as they're facing higher mortgage payments. This creates a dangerous feedback loop where economic weakness leads to housing stress, which then contributes to further economic weakness. But that's not the worst part of what's coming. Industry experts are warning that we're entering a period where housing as an asset class in Canada could be dead for now. BMO economist Robert Kavcic predicts it will be at least 5 to 10 years from the peak before we get back to 2022 price levels, simply because of how inflated valuations became during the pandemic boom. What happens next will surprise you. Despite all these warning signs, some buyers are actually being encouraged by lower interest rates to re-enter the market. Toronto saw a 40% increase in home sales in November 2024 compared to the previous year. This temporary uptick in activity could actually accelerate the coming correction by bringing more buyers into an overvalued market just before prices adjust downward. The regional variations tell an even more concerning story. While national averages show modest declines, certain pockets of Ontario are already experiencing what economists define as severe market downturns, losses in value exceeding 30%. These localized crashes often spread to neighboring areas as confidence erodes and panic selling begins. The rental market isn't providing the escape valve that many hoped for either. As more homeowners face mortgage stress, many are trying to rent out portions of their homes or sell to become renters. This increased rental supply, combined with reduced immigration, is putting downward pressure on rental rates in some areas while simultaneously increasing the number of people competing for rental units. The documents I found reveal something shocking about what financial institutions are quietly preparing for behind the scenes. Major banks are increasing their provisions for credit losses and tightening lending standards, even as the government pushes for more accessible mortgage rules. This suggests that the institutions with the most skin in the game are expecting significantly higher default rates in the coming months. Here's what the timeline really looks like based on expert analysis. The first quarter of 2025 will likely see continued price pressure as mortgage renewals accelerate and economic uncertainty persists. The second and third quarters could bring the steepest declines as the full impact of higher borrowing costs works through the system. By the fourth quarter of 2025, we may see the beginning of a stabilization phase, but only if interest rates come down significantly and economic growth recovers. The psychological factors at play are just as important as the financial ones. Consumer confidence in real estate as a reliable investment is already shaken. When people start to believe that prices might not always go up, behavior changes dramatically. Potential buyers delay purchases, existing owners rush to sell before further declines, and the self-fulfilling prophecy of a market correction begins. But here's the number that should keep every Ontario homeowner awake at night: the percentage of households spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. This measure of housing affordability stress has reached levels not seen since the early 1990s recession. When combined with higher interest rates and economic uncertainty, this creates conditions ripe for widespread financial distress. What happens next will surprise you. The federal and provincial governments are caught between competing pressures. They want to cool an overheated market to improve affordability, but they also can't afford the economic and political consequences of a severe housing crash. This policy paralysis means market forces are likely to determine the outcome rather than government intervention. The international context adds another layer of complexity. Global economic uncertainty, trade tensions, and currency fluctuations all impact Canada's housing market. If the U.S. enters a recession or trade disputes escalate, the spillover effects on Canada's economy and housing market could be more severe than current forecasts suggest. So here we are, standing at the edge of what could be the most significant housing market correction in Ontario's modern history. The warning signs are all flashing: red mortgage renewal shock, falling construction, rising unemployment risks, government policy uncertainty, and a banking sector quietly preparing for higher losses. The question isn't whether Ontario's housing market will face serious challenges in 2025. The question is how severe those challenges will be and how quickly they'll unfold. For homeowners facing renewal, the next 12 to 18 months will be critical. For potential buyers, waiting might save tens of thousands of dollars. For investors, the landscape is shifting in ways that could either create opportunities or devastating losses. What do you think about these warning signs? Are you prepared for what's coming, or do you think the market will find a way to avoid the worst outcomes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tell us, if you're a homeowner facing renewal or thinking about buying, how are you planning to navigate these turbulent times? If you found this breakdown helpful and want to stay ahead of the market developments that could affect your financial future, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more in-depth analysis. Click on the bell icon to get notified when we release our next video covering the specific strategies experts recommend for protecting yourself in this challenging market environment.